Hey, thanks. It says there's like a $1 million candy bar. It says we think you're worth $1 million. Yeah, thanks. That's really nice. Although with inflation, it's more like 600,000 or something. You can grab some coffee and taxes. Yeah, yeah, that might put me in a new bracket. I don't know. Hey, Merry Christmas. The Lord be with you. Comment and question. Which one do you want to do first? Okay, comment. Comment away, my friend. You're welcome. You should thank her too. I remember I was talking to a friend over the summer who's old friend from college, and she married a military guy who's been on several tours, or whatever. And she kind of said, I said, "Oh, thank you for your service." And she goes, "You're welcome." She's like, "What about my service? I was once stuck at home with these kids, and while he goes off gallivanting and saving people and wars and everything like that." Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, yeah. Okay, good. I was looking for feedback on that. The Advent service, the last Wednesday, the song service. Dona Nobis Pacem? Yeah. Oh, good. Well, good. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. I, I would like to do that again, but if I hear no comments, then I think I don't know. Did they like it? Did they not? Whatever. So okay, I got thumbs up from that. That's good. Good. Okay, great, great. Rita's worth 20. Rita, Rita's like the question. Yeah, Christmas Eve. Oh, well, you're early anyway. Oh my. Hmm. Hmm. That's a good question. Question was, what does it feel like for me to be up there and see everybody during Silent Night? I can't get through the song, so and that was part of it. You know, remember the sermon, that story about the guy in front of me at that other church. Honestly, every year since then, that's all I can think of. All I can think of is that guy, and the mourning that he felt, and then it's just so beautiful. You know, it's just like, and I'd be lying if there wasn't a lot of relief too on my part, because there's so much preparation that comes into it. You know, of course this year a little less because it was like Christmas Eve, Christmas Eve, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, church. So my relief to sit down to watch the Lions today will be a very welcome relief. I don't even care if they win or not. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. So yeah, who, the Lions? Oh, because he had the Lions and the, yeah, okay. So I don't know, does that answer your question? It's beautiful. I mean, it's amazing, and I like hearing more than seeing, because it's kind of the same. I mean, it's in a sense you get a better view when you're where you're sitting, because you can see everything. You can also see the entire chancellor. You can get the full picture, and I only have kind of like a part of it, and I don't get the full, scene in the chancel area, which is fine. I mean, it's just where I'm sitting. But yeah, I kind of try not to look at people's faces, because it's always like you're crying. I'm not crying. You're crying. Kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, I love that part of the service. Good questions. Thank you. Okay, so for my varsity team this morning, which you are, varsity Bible study team, I thought we would do a close reading of Matthew and Luke, and then I'll quiz you. Okay? Now, who can tell me what a close reading is? Close reading. It's when you hold the book right up to your nose, figuratively speaking. So, the way I was trained in exegesis in the seminary, had a very influential professor who trained us in close reading, which meant you make sure you know exactly what every single word says. You know what the case is, you know what the tense is, you know what the antecedent is, you know what the referent is. And so you get it exactly correct, so that when you're doing specifically an exegetical study, not only can you be accurate, but your accuracy will feed your understanding of the intertextuality of that passage and also of all other passages in the rest of the Bible. So, for example, how many of each animal did Moses? Well, that's a joke too. How many of each animal did Moses bring on the ark? Nothing. Moses didn't have an ark. How many of each animal did Noah bring onto the ark? Okay, everybody's saying 2, right? You're thinking it's not 2 because you know me now, and you know that it's a trap. 7 of every clean animal, 2 of every unclean animal. Yeah. You would know it if you had a close reading of the Bible. All right? It doesn't say it in Matthew and Mark. I'm just telling you that, they're human beings tend to do this. Oh, I know this story. I know this story, whatever. And then you could just oh, this is what happened, and then whatever. But if you slow it down and do a close reading, even text that you know very, very well, you're like, oh, man, I either forgot that or I never knew that or something like that. It's like watching your favorite movie for the 19th time, and you're like, huh, I never noticed that back there or something like that, Or you notice goofs or something like that. Wait, the gun was in his right hand just a second ago, and now it's in his left hand. I know it. You feel like you're in on something. So, so a close reading. Let's do Matthew. Let's go to Matthew 1. Now, what I want to do is simply read it. And I want you to pay very, very close attention. And after that, I have 10 questions and see how many we can get right. And if you are, in fact, the varsity team. I wrote the questions, so of course I'm going to. Like I used to, when I would give a test to the 7th and 8th graders, they're like, oh, how hard is the test? I said, I got 100%. They're like, yeah, you wrote the test. Okay, let's start at, we're gonna read chapter 1 and 2. I'm gonna read chapter 1 and 2, so follow along. The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac, Isaac the father of Jacob, Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, and Judah the father of Perez, and Zerah by Tamar, and Perez the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Ram, and Ram the father of Abinadab, and Aminadab the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon the father of Salmon, and Salmon the father of Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz the father of Obed by Ruth, and Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David the king. With me still? David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah, and Solomon the father of Rehoboam, and Rehoboam the father of Abijah, and Abijah the father of Asaph, and Asaph the father of Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat the father of Joram, Joram the father of Uzziah, and Uzziah the father of Jotham, and Jotham the father of Ahaz, and Ahaz the father of Hezekiah, and Hezekiah the father of Manasseh, and Manasseh the father of Amos, and Amos the father of Josiah, and Josiah the father of Jeconiah and his brothers at the time of the deportation to Babylon. After the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Shealtiel, and Shealtiel the father of Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel the father of Abiud, and Abiud the father of Eliakim, and Eliakim the father of Azor, and Azor the father of Zadok, and Zadok the father of Achim, and Achim the father of Eliud, and Eliud the father of Eleazar, and Eleazar the father of Matthan, and Matthan the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called the Christ. So all the generations for Abraham to David were 14 generations, and from David to the deportation to Babylon, 14 generations, and from the deportation to Babylon to the Christ, 14 generations. Now the birth of Jesus Christ took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. And her husband Joseph, being a just man and unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. But as he considered these things, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary as your wife, for that which is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took his wife, but knew her not until she had given birth to a son, and he called his name Jesus. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has born the King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written in the prophet, by the prophet, And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him. After listening to the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. Now when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Rise, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him. And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, Out of Egypt I called my son. Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious. And he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping in loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Rise, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead. And he rose and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee. And he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, so that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled, that he would be called a Nazarene. So far the text. Okay. Think you got it? Ready? Question number 1. The genealogy of Jesus goes back to Adam or to Abraham? Abraham. Yeah, you can look, but I'm not going to wait very long. Okay, close reading. In your close reading, why did Joseph want to divorce Mary quietly? Got a ringer over here. Yeah, the text literally says the reason is being a righteous man. And that's a participle of cause, I would say. So because he was a righteous man, he wanted to divorce her quietly. That's a fun point, too. Like, why does it matter that he was righteous and wanted to divorce her quietly? What does righteousness mean in that point for him? Like, why would it be a big deal for her to be divorced quietly? She would be, yeah, now there's spurious evidence to suggest that at that point in time they were doing the whole stoning adulteresses thing. But his righteousness surely flowed over into what seems like a deep devotion and love for her. So being a righteous man could also mean in his righteousness, if she gets humiliated, he would too. I mean, it must be pretty embarrassing when the woman you're about to marry gets knocked up. You're like, oh, okay. So I'm going to divorce her quietly because I'm righteous in my circles, right? It gives a kind of a new spin on the word righteous, doesn't it? Seems a little more selfish there. Yeah. Right. But what does the text say? What kind of righteousness is it in your close reading? The text leaves it open. The text doesn't answer that question. That's a crucial point of close readings, is that if the text doesn't say it, you can't say it either. You can guess and you can make suppositions and you can write papers and stuff, but you can't know for certain what kind of righteousness it was. All you can say, this is why exegetical books and papers are filled with statements like, likely the reason is this. So in the same way we can say, it's very likely that Mary was not a perpetual virgin her entire life, right? Because it seems likely from evidence in the text itself that Jesus had brothers and sisters of his mother, Mary, not adopted by Joseph, who somebody made up this story that we just don't know. Like, oh, Joseph was probably married before and he was a lot older, and so that's why you don't see him when Jesus is 30. I'm like, well, 30 years is a long time. He could have died for some other reason. They probably, the life expectancy was 26 back then anyway. Like, I don't know. But I digress. Or that point that Ken sent me an email saying, the phrase, she did not know her husband until after Jesus had been born. Technically speaking, in your close reading of the Greek text, that word until does not necessarily mean, this is it, by the way, in case you want to look that up later. The Greek word until does not necessarily mean that something happens afterwards. For example, lo, I am with you always until the end of the age. Does that mean that Jesus is not going to be with us after he comes again? That's absurd. So grammatically, linguistically, you can't determine one thing by simply that word. Another word is protogenos. She gave birth to her firstborn son and laid him in a manger. Saying firstborn son does not necessarily indicate that there are more sons, but rather it's an official thing saying, like in the Old Covenant, the one that opens the womb, the male that opens the womb gets, this sacrifice system or whatever. So firstborn is like a title, even if there are no more sons or even any children after that. I digress. Or before. Well, certainly not before, yeah. Okay. What did the angel tell Joseph to call Jesus? Who says Emmanuel? Yeah, see? 1, verse 21. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus. See? This is why we do this, right? The prophet says they shall call his name Emmanuel. It would be kind of a title. Isaiah tends to do this, you know. Usually they will call their land not forsaken. You know, we translate it in English, but in Hebrew, like that's, you know, like Isaiah had a son named Shear Yashuf, which means a remnant will return, you know. Maher-shalal al-Hashbaz is his other son. Like there's a prophetic message in the name of the kids, right? Or you will be a city not forsaken, and we call her, you know, the Lord's righteousness. And so like words and the etymology behind them are very important. So it could, you know, it's a title. Emmanuel is a title. God with us. Okay, who was disturbed along with Herod? Who was troubled with him? All of Jerusalem. Does that mean like every single, I'm not going to keep score. Does that mean every single person in Jerusalem? Probably not. But, well, yeah, so there's, yeah, it's not definite. The text does say all of Jerusalem with him. However, there's a literary device known by everybody called hyperbole. You know, unless you have, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, be uprooted and be thrown into the sea. Well, can you really? Have you ever tried to command a mountain to be uprooted and thrown into the sea? It's impossible for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. Can a camel in any circumstances fit through the eye of a needle? Unless you like liquefy it and shove it through. Is it ever possible for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God? Well, I hope so, because, you know, relatively speaking, every one of us in this room is pretty rich compared to most of the world. Yeah, Tom.
Somebody has said that they interpreted the eye of the needle as a camel.
Yeah, with a hole in the wall. Yeah. Yeah. There's a legend, myth, idea that in the wall of the city there was like a hole for some purpose. I don't know, like a trash hole or something like that. And thieves would come in through it. And so there was always a guard there. And if you stuck your head through, then you lost your head. There is no evidence that and then they called it the eye of the needle. So you obviously can't fit a camel through it. And so that's what Jesus is referring to. This is what it said. The problem with that idea, although it'll preach, I guess, there is no evidence that it exists. There's no evidence that it ever existed. And in fact, there's compelling evidence to suggest that sometime in the 19th or 20th century, some random hipster preacher thought it up and started preaching it, and it became like this urban legend that this thing happened. So it's dangerous to just assume that something like that exists without evidence. Even more dangerous to emphasize that, because it sort of misses the whole point, doesn't it? If we're looking for, okay, what is Jesus talking about? Something literally here. Here's the eye of the needle over here. Kind of misses the whole point of what he's trying to say. It's a distraction. What he's trying to say is, with God, these things are impossible. Or with man, these things are impossible. With God, anything is possible. So even the rich can be saved. So there you go. Yeah, all of Jerusalem. Yeah. Everybody knows that. Yeah, we have these colloquialisms too, yeah. 9/11. Oh, yeah. The whole country came together at 9/11. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Or like Christmas, or the whole world. Or I was hearing on the road yesterday, listening to the Christmas truce of 1914. You know that, and I was thinking as a student of history, like I really wonder how much of that story is accurate and how much is not accurate. You know, it's such a nice story that it has to have been blown up over the years. No pun intended. Uh, you know what I'm talking about? The truce of 1914, when all of a sudden on the Western Front, they all put down their arms and they all went and sang carols and they shared chocolate and they, la 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 la. And then as the guy on the radio said, the orders eventually came back, this twinkling music in the background. You're all like, oh, what a heartfelt. The orders came through, but most of the bullets were spent shooting at the stars. I'm like, give me a break. Like, come on. I think it did happen, though. It really did happen, that sort of stuff. And it is an amazing story, but how much of that is embellished is the word I was looking for. Yeah, miss.
I was just going to say, when it said all of Jerusalem,
Yeah.
I think that lends me to think that, people wouldn't care on their own, but I think that gives credibility and credence to what a jerk he was, that he
Yes.
riled up the city.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, the comment was, the phrase was, all of Jerusalem lends credibility to Herod being such a jerk that he is able to rile everybody else. Here's another thought. Consider this. All of Jerusalem being signified in the figurehead of the one in charge, which is called a synecdoche. Is it synecdoche or metonymy? I always get those mixed up. Where's my English major? You know the difference? Okay, so if you hear, just as a for instance, no, this is a metonymy. The White House spoke today. Well, did this building speak? No, it's who represents that building spoke today. So by synecdoche, the church does this. The church celebrates Christmas. Okay, well, you are the church. So is everybody in the church celebrating Christmas? Well, wait a minute. Well, you can't say that with certainty unless you see every single person who's in the church. And quite frankly, because the church is the invisible church, is all saints in Jesus Christ living and dead, we don't have access to the membership list. So it's impossible to actually say that with 100% certainty. The embellishment, the hyperbole, still stands, though. And we say, everybody does. The church does this, right? And that's still an accurate statement. So if Herod is upset, it's sort of like if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. If Herod's upset, everybody's upset. If Herod is upset, he stands for everybody. So David sleeps with Bathsheba, and his son, his love child, dies out of punishment for that adultery. He makes a census. Satan is riled against him and does a census against God's command. And God says, choose your poison. You can have a plague that will kill 10,000 people. You can have a famine that will last 3 years. Or you can have your enemies take you over or something like that. Well, a lot more people than just David suffered for David's sin. Why? Because he's the representative, right? This is why it's lonely at the top, because you represent all of that everything.
Can you not say the same thing about Adolf Hitler and what he did to Germany leading up to the Second World War?
Well, what led up to World War II was not necessarily Hitler's fault. I mean, their economy being in the tank was the Treaty of Versailles.
The whole German people were cheering them and
So we were at war with Germany, even though there were many Germans who were confused, hurt, lost, felt betrayed because they were, who didn't go along with it, but out of fear. Like I buried a woman who was in the Hitler Youth, not because she and her family thought that there was any, that was a good thing, but because they had to. Because her mother thought that was the only way she could keep her children alive, was to put them in the Hitler Youth. So then when her father came back, broke out of a Russian POW camp, he came back and said, our country has betrayed us. So we're still at war with Germany, but are there Germans in it? You know, so yeah, there's a corporate identity and then there's an individual identity, you know. Well, what happened to us the last couple of years? We're in this together. How many times did you hear that, right? Corporately, that was true. Everybody was suffering from a pandemic. But were we really in this together? No, of course, no, we're still not. And we never will. It was never, there were some people that remember 9/11 that wanted it to be like that. Let's all, and I think for, you know, about 12 hours, that was probably the case. Okay, let's figure out what we're dealing with here. And then it just all fell apart like a block, you know, a Jenga game from there. So the analogy I like better, my wife used this, we're all in the same ocean, but we're not all in the same boat. We're all in the same storm. Yeah, sorry. Well, shows how much I listen to. Yeah. Yeah, some of us have yachts and some of us have, you know, blow-up rafts. Some of us are like Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic, who, you know, you've got like a, you know, corner of a door that you kind of float on, right? It was all the same storm, you know? So we're all in the storm together, but some people were sleeping below decks in their billion-dollar yacht and telling everybody in their blow-up rafts what to do. All right. How many magi were there? At least two, yeah. Magi is a plural noun. That's it. At least two. Yeah, so that song, which I think we'll sing. You got the music to that, right, Tom? We three kings of Orient. Okay, we'll probably let's do that at Epiphany. It's not in the hymnal, but I like that song. There's three. What are their names? Like Balthazar is one of them. Is he? Beelzebub. That's probably not his name. That's probably not his name. Belshazzar. Yeah, Belshazzar, and then Malchus, is that what? I don't know, whatever. But that's apparently what and this is my other brother. I know there's one black one, like traditionally. They got like they're from the Orient or something. Like, I don't know how far east you have to go. I don't know, whatever. So 3 is just picked up in tradition because they had 3 gifts. So like, whatever. There was a book called Chasing the Eastern Star by one Mark Allen Powell about reader response criticism and close reading that I had to read for my STM degree. And that was kind of the point that I'm making, is that a lot of people have this preconceived notion of what the story was like. Okay, so they followed the star and they went to where Jesus was. Let me make sure that isn't a question I wrote under here. Well, I'll just add one. When the Magi came to where Jesus was, where was he? In the house. In the house where they were saying, yeah, right? So we have this idea, okay, Jesus was born, he was laid in a manger. Well, they didn't stay in the barn for 2 years. Somebody came out later and say, Mary Joseph, your reservation is ready, you know. You can sit at the bar until your room is ready. How were the Magi warned not to return to Herod? Mm-hmm. How many times, hold on. This isn't a question I wrote down, but in Matthew 1 and 2, how many dreams did Joseph have? 5 seconds. 3 seconds. 3. He had 3. We 3 dreams of Joseph. First he has, in chapter 1, Joseph, the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, do not fear to take Mary as your wife. And then, chapter 2, verse 13, when they departed, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, rise, take the child and go to Egypt. And then, chapter 19, when Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, take the child and go back. So Joseph the dreamer. Is there another Joseph in the Bible who has lots of dreams? And those dreams come true? Huh. There's something there, isn't there? I don't know what it is, but there's something there. Okay, what time of day did Joseph flee for Egypt with Mary and Jesus? Middle of the night, yeah, which is ironic because when did the children of Israel flee from Egypt? Middle of the night. I don't know. The middle of the night, yeah. Dark. In the middle of the night. So theological significance, the children of Israel leaving Egypt in the middle of the night, the Son of God, Israel reduced to one, going into Egypt in the middle of the night. Theological significance. Jesus is the fulfillment of all, so how does he fulfill everything? Imagine you're a preacher. What would you do with that little tidbit? Why? Why does he go into Egypt? Okay, out of Egypt I have called my son. That fulfills the prophecy. But his son, out of Egypt I called my son, can also apply to Israel, who called out of the son. Okay, this is what I would do with it, might do with it. And the same reason that Jesus was baptized a sinner's baptism is the same reason Jesus went into Egypt. So we have the same time of day. You can theologically connect the two. Okay, the people of Israel are being saved, and at the same time, because Jesus goes in there. And what plague is causing them to leave? What plague? The 10th plague is the death of the firstborn son. So the death of the firstborn son, the innocent lamb, he goes into Egypt in the middle of the night. He dies for you, and his blood, being the innocent lamb, is painted over your door, and then you get to leave. That's pretty cool. That'll preach. Yeah, that's a Good Friday sermon. And then out of Egypt I called my son, which verifies that this is like the precursor to this is my beloved son. Listen to what he says. Okay. Herod ordered the murder of every boy under the age of what? 2, which is why it's reasonable to say, why 2? What? They saw the, yeah, it's reasonable to assume that they saw the star up to that long ago. Why is it reasonable to assume that? From the text. What, Liv? I'm thinking, what does the text say? Close reading of the text. Herod calls the wise men to him, and that was the time he ascertains from the wise men when that happened. So it's reasonable to assume that the wise men saw the star and then set out on their journey. And when Herod ascertained when exactly did you see the star, it was up to 2 years ago. Does that make sense? I think we've all kind of said the same thing, but could have been safe too. Let's just stretch it out a little bit. Oh, it's a year and a half, 18 months or 19 months. Just make it 2 years. He didn't care. Could have been more than that too. Yeah, they didn't ask for ID. It's a long time to ride a camel. I don't know, maybe they had calluses and were able to. You get those 2-hump camels and you can kind of lie back, you know. Yeah, it's Did we decide what it was? It was a satellite that had time traveling capabilities. Yeah, it could have been some phenomenon, whatever, comment or whatever. I mean, I think we're going to pull the Greek up. I think it's astros. The Bethlehem star? Yeah, see, people have tried to track this down. They say, like, what star was it? Was it a comet or something like that? The same are along the lines with, like, why was there darkness covering the face of the earth from the, from noon to 3 on Good Friday, right? Why was there? And people will say, like, oh, there was an eclipse. Well, I don't know. I've lived through eclipses, and they last, like, 4 minutes. So maybe there's a better explanation. How about the Son of God was dying, and so the sun refused to shine? Oh, well, did the sun really not shine? Because then all life would just be extinguished and would freeze. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, thoughts like that are sort of, I don't know what it was. It was a star. It seemed like there's a star appeared. Did it appear like, whoop, all of a sudden not? How far away was it? Because light takes all this time to travel. So did that star get created at the beginning of time, and it was just so far away that it took that long through history for the light to suddenly appear miraculously at that moment? I don't know, maybe. Like, I don't know. God just does things. Yeah, well, no. Yeah, well, when we finally see him, I probably won't care, Or I used to, when I was a kid, I'm like, I'm making a list of all the questions that I have. Dear God, what's up with mosquitoes? I mean, seriously. Yeah. Pillar of fire by night, and pillar of cloud by day. Yeah, I mean, theologically, it fits right in there. You also have the end of Daniel. The righteous will shine like stars. And how else are you going to call astrologers? Daniel, it's really Danielic. Daniel's really, apocalyptic, end times, a lot of stuff like that, right? I mean, who were the guys in Daniel that he was dealing with most of the time? They were Persians. They were astrologers. In fact, that's the only other book that you find that word magi. In the Greek translation of the Old Testament is Daniel. The magi were ascertaining these things. So if that's in your mind, like if let's say you're a Jew, you're hearing Matthew's gospel being read to you, or you're reading it for the first time, and you're historically a Jew, what do you think about magi? You link it implicitly with the exile, the punishment to your people, and you link it with, like, these are more non-Jews outside of the covenant of Abraham trying to kill our prophets. Kill our prophets. That sounds like prophets with a PH, not prophets with an F. You're trying to kill our prophets. Nobody get it. Just thinking of. You got it. You just didn't want it. Okay. So you're linking. So you hear Magi from the east, and immediately you're thinking, what? Okay. So the King of the Jews is born. Great. If I'm a Jew, it's my king. Magi from the east came and worshipped him. What? That is remarkable. And their worship is accepted. Moreover, in the Gospel of Matthew, where are the shepherds? Who are the first people in the Gospel of Matthew, the first people to come and worship the newborn king? In the Gospel of Matthew? That's Luke. See, close reading. Matthew doesn't mention the shepherds. That's a Lucan story. So both happened. All this stuff happened. But if you're close reading the Gospel of Matthew alone, the narratives are arranged in such a way to make a point and to guide your thinking and understanding in a certain way. So theologically speaking, why would he leaves out the shepherds, not because they're unimportant, but because he's doing something else with the narrative. And so what might he be doing if Matthew is really like the gospel for the Jews, and he says right off the bat, the first people to come and worship the newborn king are non-Jews. Not just non-Jews, but sorcerers, magicians, people that cannot inherit the kingdom of God. Point he's making is that, yes, yeah. He's for the entire world. And you will be my, and then it ends, right? 28, you will be my witnesses. Where? In Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, and to the ends of the world. So first he says, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem. Here's the holy city, the Jewish city. In Judea, here's the Jewish country. In Samaria, Samaritans? In the whole world, even nations you don't even know yet. Huh. So Matthew is deliberately emphasizing throughout the gospel that Jesus is there for, Jesus himself says later, I have come to seek and save the lost sheep of Israel. Why? Because through that fulfillment, through him, all the nations can be saved, right? So it's really a universal gospel. Now, Luke's point, because he brings out the first people to worship Jesus are the shepherds. What would Luke's point be in bringing up the shepherds first? That's the humility. That's the least will be greatest and the greatest will be least. The first will be last and last will be first. These smelly, drunk shepherds out in a field that, well, middle of the night and whatever, complaining, probably upset they had to work on Christmas, and they were out there, and they went to, wasn't that funny. They're the first ones to see Jesus, and they're the first evangelists. So God uses the weakness of these rejected, bottom scum of society type people to actually do it. Like, yeah, go ahead.
I was learning from a rabbi at one point, and when in Luke chapter 2, he talks about the angel saying that you'll find the babe wrapped in swaddling cloth.
Swaddling cloths, yeah. Yeah, it's a death shroud. Yeah.
Later on. So when they say to the Jews, you will find, or the shepherds, you will find the babe wrapped in a swaddling cloth, they got it.
Yeah.
That term alone was significant.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I love stuff like that. In hermeneutics, we would call that a level 3 reading. Level 3 is when you look at all of the fineries of the historical significance of stuff like that. So why this? So like the eye of the needle thing. Some people make things up, like eye of the needle. Some things are real, like swaddling cloths. Like here's this word for this, or whatever. Or lepta, the word for the copper coins, whatever. It aids your understanding and contemplation of the text if you understand those individual details. So the copper coin dropped into the money box, or even better, the parable of the unforgiving servant. He owed 10,000 talents. Okay, level 3 reading. How much is a talent? 75 pounds. 75 pounds of what? Well, probably silver or something like that. How much money is that? Well, it's like the national debt of America. You can't. How did you even rack up that debt? So it aids your understanding. 10,000 talents he owes. In 50 lifetimes he wouldn't be able to pay that back. That's the point. And it emphasizes the level 2 reading of the story, which is the illocutionary force. Yeah, go on.
Somebody had said the eye of the needle. It didn't literally mean a little, eye of an actual needle. They were saying that in order for a camel to have to duck down,
Yeah, you'd have to get on its knees. Yeah. Yeah, there's just no evidence for it. Yeah. Right. I mean, yeah, it just goes to show, like some people just try too hard to squeeze meaning out of something that is a lot simpler than that, just like gosh, this was this kind of bothered me in All Jerusalem for a day or two when I learned this. How did the people that went to get the donkey from Bethany so that Jesus could ride into Jerusalem, how did they know? Well, they went back, yeah, a servant carrying water. Well, no, that was for which room? You'll see a servant carrying a jar of water and go ask him for the room. That was for the upper room. But before that, go and if they ask you, why are you untying the colt, then say the Lord has need of it. and then they'll say, oh, okay, and they'll let you have it. So we have this like mystical idea that Jesus is just like, he just transcends everything. He just understands and can work in their hearts that the Lord has need of it. Oh, take all my donkeys, you know. Could that have been how it happened? Sure, whatever. The text doesn't say one way or the other. Could it also have happened that the other day Jesus said, hey, can I borrow your donkey? Yeah, that sort of tears away the mystique. Also consider who lives in Bethany. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, with whom he was quite close. It was about 2 miles away from Jerusalem. And at least in the Gospel of John, what chapter is Lazarus raised from the dead? In John 11. What chapter in John is the triumphal entry into Jerusalem? 12. Now, you can't ascertain this precisely from the text, but on a close reading of all 4 Gospels together, it is not unreasonable to think that after Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, and everyone was celebrating that, he said, by the way, I need your donkey in a couple of days. And then a few days later, they went and did that. Actually, I think there is a temporal marker in John. It was Lazarus, chief priest. Passover, the Jews was at hand. Jesus no longer walked openly. Went from there to a region near the wilderness to a town called Ephraim. There he stayed with his disciples. 6 days before the Passover, this is John 12. 6 days before the Passover, which means a week, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom God raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining at a table. And then Mary took her, and she did the whole perfume thing. And then the triumphal entry, when the large crowd of Jews learned that Jesus was there, they came, blah, 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 blah. The next day, a large crowd had come to the feast that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem. So according to the Gospel of John, the day before the triumphal entry, in other words, the day before Palm Sunday, he was at Lazarus' house. So then in the other Gospels, when they go to Bethany and untie a colt and say the Lord has need of it, it could have been Lazarus' donkey. Why am I bringing all this up? Because it's fun, yeah. And because I love the Gospel of John, yeah. But also to show you that sometimes you can get so far down a rabbit hole that you forget to ask the question, who cares? So, I mean, being serious as a preacher, like as I talk to my best friend in South Dakota, and I talk just about every Saturday night. We'll say, all right, what are you preaching on? You're preaching on, and I always distract him. He's like never done, but I finish mine and then call him and distract him for an hour. And we'll talk about stuff like this, whatever, and then always ask the question. It's usually him. He'll say, okay, who cares? Or rather, why should they care? So why should you, the listeners of the text, if I put in this effort and time to study and make all these charts and graphs and say, like, aha, the call was coming from inside the house. The donkey actually belonged over here. And let's read up about donkey ownership in the ancient land, and let's give you all these facts about donkeys from the pulpit or whatever. Like, who cares? Who cares? The point is, like, you start a sermon at the end, and then everything gets built up to that point. So the sermon has started, what do I want them to walk away knowing or thinking or doing? And then if something else gets peppered in along the way, and you think, oh, that's interesting, I never knew that before. Great, so much the better. But the whole point is, it's all interesting, but it could take you off focus of the goal. That's right. That's exactly my point. So if the goal of the sermon is always going to be confidence in your faith in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ and the salvation of your souls, that's always going to be the goal. That has to be the goal of preaching. Everything else feeds that. So if I know all of this like interesting trivia about donkeys and Lazaruses, if it doesn't fuel the message of the gospel, but in fact sometimes can distract from it, you'll never hear it from the pulpit. You'll hear it in here. Ken, you had your hand up. Yeah, they knew Lazarus. Yeah. Right. And that puts a pin on it right there. It doesn't really matter either way. Jesus could have said, go get Lazarus' donkey. Make sure Mary's not looking because she's going to complain about it the whole time. She'll go get the manager. The Lord has need of it. Oh, I guess. He did raise me from the dead. Okay. Age or two. I got two more questions. When did Joseph take Mary and Jesus back to Israel from Egypt? Yeah, after Herod died. And finally, what caused Joseph to go to Nazareth instead of Judea? Archelaus was ruling in place instead of Herod. So, signifying that it was pretty commonly known that Archelaus was not much better than his father. So, dynasty of the Herods, like the dynasty of the, no, I'm going to, you know exactly what I'm thinking of. I'm going to stop right there. Yes? You can have the last word, Tom.
When you talk about donkey, I keep thinking
Don
donkey, okay?
Quixote.
Odi, O-T-E in Hebrew means sign.
Don Quixote. So who are the windmills that he's tilting at? You know, the word quixotic in English is based on. You know, the second most sold book of all time is Don Quixote in Spanish. Yeah. And the author was Cervantes. Anybody read it? It's pretty good, actually. It's very long. It's long, and it's like 400 years old. Yeah. All right, well, that was fun. In the love of God, the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and fellowship with the Holy Spirit be and abide with us always. Amen. Merry Christmas. See you around.